The man can only ride you when your back is bent, so strengthen it. Then the man can't ride you. American won't be taken for a ride because so much is at stake. And we can't afford politicians playing games like nothing more is at stake than, maybe just the next standing of theirs in the next election.
Nothing like a weekend in Iowa to get the political blood pumping, the Las Vegas presidential odds to change, hopes to be buoyed and dashed, and the American presidential race to truly begin in earnest. And if you want a true look at who emerged from the Iowa Freedom Summit as a possible choice for the Republican nomination, don't ask one of those silly pundits. Ask a man who's been there and knows it's not all about kissing babies and knowing how the corn is planted. Pleasure to welcome back into MidPoint former two-time candidate for the Republican presidential nomination, one who understands the politics and financial side of such attempts, and his latest book co-authored with Elizabeth Ames, Money, How the Destruction of the Dollar Threatens the Global Economy and What We Can Do About It. Steve Forbes joins us. Steve, pleasure to talk to you again.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, let's see. After what happened at the Iowa Summit this weekend past, what do you say? Shall we just go ahead and pack everything in and say Scott Walker's the winner?
Well, he's certainly has put himself on the map in a major way, and obviously Carly Fiorina did so in a different way. But what Governor Walker has to do now is demonstrate that he's putting together the organization, the ground game, raising the resources to be a very real, sustainable, long-term candidate. We all know Jeb Bush will get the resources. I'm not sure Romney's going to stay in for more than a month or two, even though he's semi-declared. I think the reaction has been almost totally negative. And Christie will raise some money, Governor Christie. But if Walker can show he can get the bucks, he will be a formidable candidate. When I go around and talk to Republicans, there's not a lot of enthusiasm out there. They know we must win 2016, but they're all willing to give a look at Governor Walker. They're very interested. They know he's a man who's demonstrated real backbone under severe pressure. He's got that kind of demeanor that doesn't frighten people, but does big things. So there's keen interest, and what he did in Iowa is huge in establishing himself as a formidable front runner.
What about those who saw what happened and said, wait a minute, Chris Christie actually looks as if he can get people in Iowa to like him, which seems to be the biggest issue, and Donald Trump came out and he just slammed away at everybody, and honestly, it seems like people reacted to that more than they reacted to a lot of the positive messages, putting him, in the eyes of many, right up there with the front runners.
Well, we'll see again who actually is going to go from dipping their toes in the water to plunging in those icy waters. And we've got a couple of more months before you've got to really make a decision. But many operatives, as you know, are signing up with candidates. And so if you're going to make a move, you've got to do it in the next 8 to 10 weeks if you're going to play a serious game in Iowa.
What's your take, though, on Chris Christie?
The what?
What's your take on Chris Christie, specifically?
Well, I think, he comes from a very blue state, and he's a formidable executive. And people talk about, he chews people out and all that kind of thing. But given what's happening in the world, people may be up for somebody who has a frontal, take-no-prisoner approach, who has demonstrated he can get some things done. New Jersey's economy is still weak, but we've got still a lot of work to do there. But he may fit the mood of the time. And the key thing is he's got to demonstrate, too, that he's got some real programs in terms of, say, a radical tax reform, what to do about Obamacare and the like, to establish that he's just not a fellow who knows how to fight forces, but has got good ideas to put on the table.
I got about 30 seconds, and then
people want a Reagan-esque approach of a positive, radical agenda and the ability to get it done.
Okay, then, with about 20 seconds left before we take a break, that radical, positive agenda, out of all these candidates, which one, in your opinion, has the best ability to push that forward and get people to believe them?
Well, there's several who could do it. This is what people like about governors. Governors have to deal with everyday problems. This is where Walker has a huge opening. He's demonstrated he can deal with crises, and does he have the program to go with it? And that's where Jeb Bush has got to do it. That's where Christie's got to do it. Jindal wants to run. He's got to do it. So it's good to have the executive background. Now you've got to show you've got the principal's chops, you might say, program chops.
From Backbone as well. Hold on one sec, Steve. We got to take a break. We're right back here on MidPoint. Back to work with Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media, co-author of the new book, Money, How the Destruction of the Dollar Threatens the Global Economy and What We Can Do About It, Steve Forbes. Steve, in a recent column, you wrote why Congress is biased against real tax cuts. Wait a minute. We're told that Congress really wants tax cuts, and also we're told that the Congressional Budget Office, well, that's certainly the main line that you have to measure everything against. But you're pointing out that, wait a minute, we need to rethink this, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, and the Joint Tax Committee, the way they do what they call scoring, if you propose a tax cut, they always want to know what's it going to do to revenues, what's it going to do to the economy, and that's always biased against tax cuts. They always assume the tax cuts will rip a big hole in the budget, will do nothing really over time for the economy, whereas if you do the opposite, it seems to work miracles. So obviously, if you have that kind of bias, it's very hard to be able to, the opponents of tax cuts can always say, you see, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has declared that this tax proposal you're putting out there to reduce tax rates would, end civilization as we know it. And the shame of the Republicans, they took over Congress back in 1994. They never changed the way these things are scored. And as a result, it makes it very difficult to get meaningful tax changes. And they, the Democrats, whatever you think of them, whatever you think of liberals, they understand the importance of these seemingly complicated, non-front page rules in terms of pushing forward their agenda. And our guys say, oh, we're reforming CBO now, the Congressional Budget Office. But the reality is, they've got to change the personnel if they expect a real change. Passing a resolution saying take more cognizance, pay more attention to reality is going to do nothing.
Steve, how do you answer back? And I know you've heard this before, but here it comes. The left will always look at something that you say. And many of them will say, wait a minute, you're just another one of those rich guys. You don't really care about tax cuts. And as a matter of fact, all you and the rest of you rich guys are trying to do is just protect yourself. And you really don't care about the middle class, no matter what you say. How do you answer back when that is the constant line that you always hear and it never seems to get challenged?
Well, the way you challenge it is if you want mobility in this country, the ability of people to rise up, which set of policies do it? Reagan did it. John Kennedy did it with his tax cuts. And look at what's happened to the middle class in the last 6 years under those who pretend that they're in favor of the middle class. Median incomes have stagnated. Incomes today, in real terms, are lower than they were 7 years ago. So you people who say you love the middle class, you're pursuing policies that puts them on a treadmill, and the treadmill is winning. They're going backwards, not forwards. So don't say what they want to do or what they profess they wish to do for people. Look what they actually end up doing, hurting those with the least.
What will it take then, in your opinion, for those on the right to blunt those arguments, to finally get to something that quickly and easily stops those arguments right in their tracks and says, it's a lie, it's false, and here's reality? What's it going to take?
It takes, hopefully, somebody like a Scott Walker or some others out there to confront the issue and say, you're right, the top 1% has done very well in this recovery under Barack Obama. The other 99 or 90% haven't done so well. Why is that? Because of their rotten policies of excessive taxation, wrecking the health care system, binge spending, conjuring rules and laws out of thin air, and look what you've done. And so if you have a team that doesn't win, you get a new manager that has a good game plan. We know it works. It worked with Kennedy. It worked with Reagan. We'll make it work again.
Steve, I only have about a minute left. Here's a breaking story today. Turkey has ordered now, if you will, Facebook to block pages that insult the Prophet Muhammad. You are at the helm of one of the biggest media companies in the world. Would you ever allow yourself to stop publishing the pictures of Muhammad because another country or a group told you to, in other words, ordered you to?
Now, you've got to make it very clear. The First Amendment has appeal not just in America, but all around the world. And you should have whether you do something or not, you can use your own judgment, but you have the right to do it. And so I can think of some nasty things to say about the Turkish government, but that's not fit for a family audience. But the fact of the matter is, the head of the government of Turkey seems to be going in a very dictatorial direction, and this is just one of the manifestations of it.
We want to remind everybody once again that your new book is called Money. Oddly enough, it's called Money: How the Destruction of the Dollar Threatens the Global Economy and What We Can Do About It. And once again, it's a book that I've had a chance to read. It's got a lot of great ideas in it. Steve Forbes, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much. I'll look forward to the next time.
This has been fun. Thank you.
Take care, Steve. The end of the internet as we know it, which might not be an entirely bad idea if you think about it, and the beginning of the latest Snowmageddon. All this in several bags of chips for the people not going anywhere for the next couple of days. It's all when MidPoint continues.